Welcome to another episode of Biga Solutions. For those who are new to the channel, Biga is an acronym. B meaning Biomimicry, IG meaning Indigenous Genius, and A referring to ethical artificial intelligence. Biga Solutions is where we discuss the nexus of biomimicry, indigenous genius, often referred to as indigenous knowledge, and artificial intelligence. But not just artificial intelligence, ethical artificial intelligence. So today we're going to be broadcasting from outdoors. We're going to take an interesting topic. Intelligence lately has been finding its way into the corporate corridors. A friend of mine recently was trying to secure a position with a top corporate company, and unfortunately they couldn't make it past the shortlist. The explanation they received was that they were actually rejected by the AI. And they came to me and said, I always watch you talk about artificial intelligence. Can you explain to me how AI rejected my CV? Well, I said, well, there are two ways this could have played out. One is that the AI was properly given instructions on who to accept and who to reject based on the criteria that it was given. Or it could have been biased AI. And then they said, wow, what is biased AI? This is what we're going to talk about today. Let me give you an example. Let's say you've got a company that has for years been hiring people, and there's got a whole deck of CVs. And then these CVs are fed to artificial intelligence to say, look, these are the good people that we hired in this company in the past. So for our shortlist, I want you to identify people with these characteristics. Of course, you can define the qualifications and the experience, but the general caliber of people that were hired could then be fed into the AI as training data. And then the AI will then look. But herein is where the bias can creep in. Imagine, in those CVs, you do have details about which schools people attended, you have details about where they live, you have details about their ethnic extraction. Sometimes it's indirect because a particular location actually may have a predominance of a particular group of certain ethnic extraction. So the AI will look through then the sample training data that is given, and then it will say, well, previously we had people from this location, or it may say we had people who went to these kind of universities, and those who went to the other universities, we have never had anybody there, so it probably means they are no good for the company. And that then perpetually becomes a self-reinforcing loop where people selected based on where previously other people were selected from. And those who are not known to the AI or to the training data that is fed to the AI are then rejected. So we may ask, what has this got to do with indigenous knowledge? And what has this got to do with biomimicry? Well, I'm coming to that. Let's talk about how trust is built, because really, when you are hiring someone, essentially you're looking for somebody who has got the qualification and the expertise that you are looking for. But also, you're looking for somebody that you can trust, someone that is reliable, somebody that the company can depend on. And therefore, how do you build this trust with strangers that you have never met? Or rather, how do you know what they're claiming in their CVs is authentic? This is where the trust comes in. And let's see how indigenous people have developed trust, not just amongst themselves, but trust with other players in the ecosystem in which they find themselves. I'll give you an example of the honeybird. So when I was growing up, I grew up in nature. Some of you have heard this before in previous episodes. We have seen in nature people relationships with organisms in the forest, some of which are not even human. An example is the honeybird. If you go with some indigenous communities to the forest, what you will discover is that the honeybird when it notices that there are people, it will make sound and start flying from tree to tree, and they know that this honeybird is going to direct them to where there is honey, and they follow the honeybird, and eventually the honeybird will then perch where there is the honey and start making a louder noise which indicates the honey is here, and then it will just fly away and sit on a nearby tree, and then the people will see the honey and they will then harvest the honey, but in exchange they will leave some bit for the honeybird to also enjoy. So there is this relationship where the honeybird knows that if I lead humans to where there is honey, instead of me having to be stung by bees, trying to get the honey from the bees, the human beings can do this for me, and they will leave the honey for me. So you have what in biology is known as mutualistic relationship. This is like a symbiotic relationship that exists between the humans and the wild animals or organisms, in this case, the birds. You may then say to yourself, well, but how can this be applied? Okay, before we even talk about how it can be applied or combined with artificial intelligence, let me give you another example. So when I grew up in the village until I hit my teens and then went to the big city, we had ways of communicating which were trusted by the community. For instance, if someone had died, there was a certain drum beat that gave you an indication that somebody has died in a nearby village, or from the rhythm of the drum, you knew that it's a celebration. This song is a wedding, this one is a funeral, this one a baby has been born. And it wasn't just the auditory signal that you received. You also got a visual signal. There were certain trees that were known by indigenous communities that if you burn this tree or the leaves of this tree, you are going to get maybe a black smoke or a blue smoke or a different colored smoke. These were also signals that were used alongside with the sound. So if you saw a certain color smoke, you knew the chief maybe or somebody important had died, or an elderly person maybe in their 80s or 90s had died, because that smoke was associated with that person. And the whole community knew that this actually is authentic. So you ask yourself, what are some of the authentic metrics that are trusted by communities or trusted by different individuals that we can incorporate into our decisions to find really authentic people that we're looking for? Now let's go to nature and look at biomimicry, how this authentication happens or this trust is built up. I'll pick an example of monkeys. Most people know that monkeys love bananas. So the monkeys and the bananas have this sort of relationship. So the bananas will have a green color when they are not yet ripe. And the monkey knows this, that if you eat a green one, it's going to taste bitter, it's going to be hard to chew, it's not ready. But when it's ready and it's yellow, this is the time to eat it. And when it's turning brown, it means it's getting rotten, it's about to fall off on the ground. And then you say, but how can we apply this knowledge? Well, think about it. We all buy liquids, for instance. Let's take milk, maybe in a paper sort of container packaging. What if we integrated some of these ideas? So instead of using a lot of unauthenticated ways in terms of when is the expiry date, we integrate this into our packaging so that if the milk is fresh, the package is of a particular color. As days go by, the color of the packaging starts changing. And when it reaches a certain color, you know that milk is no good. It can't be consumed. It's no longer fit for human consumption. So anybody looking at that milk in the shop, they will know the status of freshness of that milk. That's another example that we could use. And also, Some of you may have seen, if you've been to an ocean, you may have come across what is called bioluminescence, where, especially at night, you dip your hands on the side of a boat, you dip your hands in the water, and then you get this amazing blue luminescence. And that color is organisms that are in the water. And those organisms, sometimes they do what is called quorum sensing, where a certain critical number of them, when they are agreeing that it's time to go bioluminescent, then they change color. This is similar in a way. Think about those insects that flash at night. They have bacteria in their stomachs, and that's the bacteria that undergoes a cold chemical reaction. And when a certain number of them have decided to glow, then they will all glow and give the color. So how do we use this information, for instance, in our decision making, to be able to know that a certain critical number of people are considering this person as authentic, and therefore we believe in our shortlisting or selection process we have the person we want? There could be different metrics we can use, ranging from, of course, social media. I know some people can argue that social media is not reliable, unless, of course, you know how to handle it. So you could have a person who, depending on the networks they have, they are already pre-qualified. People have authenticated them in various ways. I know this enters into an interesting space of perhaps the privacy. How much information should we have out there? But most of us already have put out information in our networks and things like that. And there are ways then AI can be leveraged to tap into this information that is publicly available, so that it enhances the knowledge they have, and they are able to make a decision about how reliable a person you are, based on how your own friends, based on how other people have evaluated you. Think of it as an enhanced version of what the likes of LinkedIn do with having someone confirm and endorse you that you're an expert in a particular subject area. So this would be something similar to that, but on steroids, with AI actually doing that. And of course, one has to be careful about AI. If you don't just use it correctly, you actually can then introduce these biases that we need to be aware of. And I give you another example where even in nature we do have some organisms trying to be untrue, but there are ways of weeding these unauthentic organisms. There's a certain bird that will sit on a tree. It will find a nice place where you have meerkats. So meerkats, they are just bigger than rats, but you probably have seen them in images standing. And normally when they are foraging for food, they'll post a sentry. So one of them will be watching, maybe for the eagle or another predator, and whilst the other ones are foraging for food. And when it notices that there is an eagle that is about to attack, it will then raise an alert, a sound, and all of them will carry and go into their underground burrows. And this bird has noticed that these meerkats then respond to certain sounds. So it will pretend to be helping, sit on a tree, and there is an predator lying by. It will warn the meerkats until it builds a relationship with them. And then they will trust it now, and maybe stop posting a scent. They all start foraging and relying on this bird. But then the bird becomes greedy and maybe starts sending a false alarm when it sees that the meerkats have caught some rodent, so that they run away and go into their burrows, and then it takes their food. But soon enough they discover that it is a liar, and then they start ignoring it. And then that relationship can collapse if something like that happens. So there are ways also at a broader scale, like at the ecosystem scale. If you are a species and you are selfish, the rest of the species will eject you. In biology, it's called going extinct. I know some organisms go extinct with human intervention, but those who go extinct, sometimes it's because they're no longer fit to be part of that ecosystem, because maybe the environmental conditions have changed and it's not adapted to those conditions, or because it has become greedy and the rest of the ecosystem has said this one should not be amongst us. So AI can then enhance some of those existing ways of authenticating and help us at a broader human scale to be able to also make informed decisions. I know this sounds like it's far-fetched, but the rate at which AI has been changing recently has been so rapid. At the end of 2019, the International Labour Organization released a study on the future of work. And one of the things they concluded was that although artificial intelligence is going to take over certain tasks that are done by humans, there are certain things that AI can never do, and this will remain the preserve of human beings. One example was the issue of creativity. At the time, this was 2019, we thought humans will always be more creative than artificial intelligence. And only a few months ago, we saw the writers in Hollywood going on strike because AI is already writing funnier jokes and more creative stories than human beings, and the studios are preferring AI and cloning some of the humans. So already we know. And the other thing we're told was that robots will never be as empathetic and compassionate as humans. But we're already seeing robots, especially to care for the elderly, that are quite compassionate. And they don't get tired. You can insult this robot, you can say all the nasty things to it to remain nice and kind to you. So all these myths we had about AI have been busted. But we should not get worried or scared that AI is coming to take over our jobs. AI is not coming to take your job. Rather, a person using AI is coming to take your job. And therefore, you need to know how to leverage and use AI in a way that is beneficial for all of us as human beings, and remove the biases that are inherent in the training data that currently is a problematic issue in terms of getting AI to make decisions alongside humans. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode, and remember to always go bigger, go bigger, go bigger.